Most people don't realize the moment they lose their power, it doesn't happen during big failures or dramatic events. It happens quietly, in seconds, when a single word, look, or tone pulls them out of their center. One moment you're calm, the next your chest tightens, your thoughts race, and your peace is gone. That's how triggers steal control without permission. And if you don't learn how to stop getting triggered, you'll keep handing your emotional power to people and situations that were never meant to have it. The most emotionally free people aren't untouched by life. They've simply learned how not to react. Most people don't lose their peace because of what happens to them. They lose it because of how fast they react. A word, a look, a tone, a memory, and suddenly something inside you tightens. Your chest feels heavy, your thoughts speed up. Your mood shifts before you even realize what just happened. This is what being triggered looks like in real life, and the danger is not the trigger itself, it's the way it quietly takes control. If you don't learn to stop getting triggered, you'll keep handing your power to situations and people who were never meant to have it. And the truth is, the most emotionally free people are not those who avoid triggers. They're the ones who no longer react to them. Being triggered doesn't mean you're weak. It means something unresolved inside you has been touched. A trigger is simply a signal, not a failure. It shows you where your nervous system learned to protect itself, where your emotions learned to defend, where your mind learned to brace for impact. But when you don't understand this, you start fighting shadows. You argue with strangers in your head. You replay moments that already passed. You lose hours of peace to seconds of disrespect. And the worst part is that the world keeps moving while you stay emotionally stuck in a moment that didn't deserve that much energy. Most triggers are not about the present. They are echoes from the past. A dismissive tone feels bigger than it is because it reminds you of not being heard. A critical comment stings because it connects to old doubts you thought you healed. Someone's confidence irritates you because it exposes the confidence you once suppressed. When you don't see this clearly, you assume the trigger is outside of you. But once you understand it, everything changes. You stop blaming the moment and start observing the pattern, and observation is where power begins. The moment you feel triggered is the moment your awareness matters most. This is the crossroads. You can react or you can pause. You can explode inwardly or outwardly, or you can breathe and watch the sensation pass. Triggers feel urgent, but they are temporary. They demand immediate reaction, but they don't deserve it. When you respond instantly, you reinforce the pattern. When you pause, even for a few seconds, you interrupt the cycle. That pause is not weakness, it's mastery. It's the space where your emotional intelligence starts to take control. People who trigger you often don't know they're doing it. Some do it unconsciously. Some project their own unresolved pain. Some are simply mirrors showing you something you haven't fully integrated yet. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The more reactive you are, the more accessible you become. People sense it. They feel when your emotions are easy to move, and without meaning to, you teach the world how to affect you. Learning to stop getting triggered isn't about becoming cold. It's about becoming unshakable. When you stop getting triggered, something subtle but powerful happens. Your energy stops leaking, your mind becomes quieter, situations that once felt personal start to feel neutral. You don't need to explain yourself as much. You don't need to prove your point. You don't need to win every emotional battle. Instead, you begin choosing where your attention goes, and attention, once controlled, becomes authority. This is why emotionally grounded people appear calm even in chaos. They're not suppressing emotions, they're no longer ruled by them. Most people believe triggers live in the mind, but the truth is they live in the body first. Before your thoughts even catch up, your nervous system has already reacted. Your heart rate shifts, your muscles tense, your breathing changes. This happens in milliseconds, faster than logic, faster than reasoning. That's why telling yourself to just calm down never works in the moment. Your body learned these reactions long before your conscious mind had a say. Understanding this changes everything, because it means stopping triggers isn't about fighting thoughts. It's about retraining your internal response system. Your nervous system was designed to protect you, not to make you comfortable. At some point in your life, reacting quickly was necessary. Staying alert, defensive, or emotionally guarded helped you survive something. Criticism, rejection, unpredictability, or emotional pain. The problem is that the body doesn't automatically update itself. It keeps using old survival responses even when the danger is gone. So now, a harmless comment feels like a threat. A disagreement feels like an attack. And your system reacts as if your safety is on the line even when it's not. This is why triggers feel so intense and impersonal. Your body isn't responding to the situation. It's responding to the meaning it learned to attach to similar moments. When someone raises their voice, your system remembers times when raised voices meant loss of control. When someone ignores you, your body recalls moments when being unseen felt unsafe. None of this is happening consciously, and that's what makes triggers so confusing. You feel hijacked by a reaction you didn't choose, and then you judge yourself for it afterward, creating a second layer of emotional pain. The moment you get triggered, your thinking brain partially shuts down. This is not a flaw, it's biology. The nervous system prioritizes speed over accuracy. That's why triggered reactions are often exaggerated, emotional, or absolute. You say things you don't mean. You assume the worst. You replay the moment repeatedly, trying to regain control. But control doesn't come from analyzing the situation. It comes from regulating the body. When the body feels safe, the mind regains clarity. This is the order most people get wrong. People who appear emotionally mature are not immune to triggers. They've simply trained their nervous system to recover faster. They feel the initial wave, but they don't drown in it. They notice the sensation, breathe through it, and allow it to pass without attaching a story. This skill is learned, not inherited. And the more you practice it, the shorter the reaction becomes. What once took hours to shake off begins to dissolve in minutes, then seconds. That's not suppression. That's regulation. One of the biggest mistakes people make is trying to confront or fix the trigger while they're still activated. That's like trying to repair a ship during a storm. Nothing integrates in that state. Real change happens after the body settles. This is why awareness is more powerful than willpower. The moment you recognize my body is reacting right now, you create distance between yourself and the reaction. That distance is where choice returns, and with choice, you reclaim control over how much energy the moment gets. The most powerful shift happens when you stop trying to eliminate triggers and start learning how to interrupt them. A trigger only has power if it runs its full course without awareness. The moment you catch it early, you weaken it. Most people realize they were triggered after the damage is done, after the words were spoken, after the mood collapsed, after the peace was lost. But emotional mastery is built in the seconds before the reaction completes. That's where your attention needs to live, not on controlling the world, but on catching yourself at the moment of activation. Interruption does not mean suppression creates pressure, and pressure always leaks. Interruption means noticing the sensation without feeding it, the tight chest, the heat in the face, the sudden rush of thoughts. These are signals, not commands. You don't have to obey them. The body wants immediate release, but release doesn't require reaction. Sometimes the most powerful move is to stay still internally, to breathe, to let the wave pass without becoming it. This is how you stop being dragged by every emotional current. One of the simplest yet most effective tools is naming the experience in your mind. Quietly saying, "This is a trigger," creates separation. You stop identifying with the emotion and start observing it. Observation slows everything down. It reminds your system that you are present, that you are not in danger, that you don't need to escalate. This small act of awareness interrupts the automatic loop and brings your nervous system out of survival mode. It sounds simple, but it's transformative when practiced consistently. Breathing becomes critical in this moment, not as a relaxation technique, but as a signal of safety. Slow, deliberate breaths tell your body there is no immediate threat. You're not trying to calm down. You're telling your system it's allowed to stand down. Most triggers lose intensity when the body feels safe enough to release them. The longer you stay present with the sensation without reacting, the weaker the trigger becomes the next time it appears. Your body learns that it no longer needs that response. Another powerful interruption is delaying your response. You don't owe immediate reactions to anyone. Silence, pauses, and space are not signs of weakness. They are signs of self-control. When you stop responding instantly, you break the emotional rhythm the trigger depends on. The urgency fades, clarity returns, and often what felt so important in the moment becomes irrelevant minutes later. Time is one of the greatest dissolvers of emotional charge when you don't fight it. Triggers feed on stories. The mind rushes to explain, accuse, defend, or predict, but stories intensify sensations. The less narrative you attach, the faster the reaction fades. You don't need to analyze why you're triggered in the moment. That comes later. Right now, your only task is to stay present without fueling the emotion. The more you practice this, the more your system learns a new response. Awareness instead of reaction. Choice instead of impulse. If certain triggers keep repeating in your life, it's not because you're failing. It's because something is asking to be resolved. Repeated triggers are patterns, not punishments. They show up again and again because they carry unprocessed information. The same emotional reaction, the same irritation, the same inner tension returns until it is fully seen and integrated. Avoiding these triggers only strengthens them. Fighting them keeps them alive. Understanding them, however, begins to dissolve their hold over you. Some people trigger you more than others because they touch a specific emotional imprint. They may remind you of someone from your past, reflect a part of yourself you've suppressed, or activate an old dynamic where you felt powerless or unseen. These reactions feel personal because they are personal, but not in the way you think. They're not about the person in front of you. They're about what that person awakens inside you. Once you see this, you stop expecting others to behave differently and start working with your internal response. Unresolved triggers often carry emotional energy that was never fully expressed. Feelings you weren't allowed to feel, words you couldn't say, boundaries you didn't know how to set. All of this gets stored in the body. When a similar situation appears, the stored energy tries to complete itself. That's why reactions can feel disproportionate to the moment. You're not reacting to now. You're responding to then. Healing happens when you allow the emotional loop to finish without repeating the original pain. One reason triggers persist is because they're misunderstood as weaknesses. People try to hide them, suppress them, or judge themselves for having them. But triggers aren't flaws. They're invitations to awareness. They reveal where growth is still happening. When you meet a trigger with curiosity instead of resistance, it loses its intensity. The moment you stop making it wrong, it stops needing to shout for attention. Another reason triggers repeat is because they've become familiar. The nervous system prefers what it knows, even if it's uncomfortable. Reacting feels normal because it's practiced. Calm feels unfamiliar because it hasn't been trained yet. This is why change can feel unsettling at first. When you don't react the way you usually do, your system doesn't recognize the pattern. But over time, calm becomes the new normal. Stability becomes familiar. And what once triggered you starts to feel distant and irrelevant. True resolution doesn't come from avoiding triggering people or situations. It comes from changing your relationship to them. You don't need to confront everyone who activates you. You don't need closure from others. You need integration within yourself. When the lesson is learned, the trigger fades naturally. The situation may still occur, but the emotional charge disappears. And when that happens, you realize you've outgrown something without needing to announce it. When triggers lose their power, the first thing you notice is silence, not around you, but within you. Situations that once pulled emotional reactions from your body now pass through without resistance. You still feel, but you are no longer overwhelmed. You still notice, but you are no longer consumed. This inner quiet doesn't come from emotional numbness, it comes from emotional clarity. You are no longer fighting yourself, and because of that, the world feels less heavy. You begin responding instead of reacting. Words slow down. Decisions feel cleaner. You don't rush to explain, defend, or correct. You let moments reveal themselves before engaging. This shift changes how others experience you. People feel less able to provoke you, less able to pull emotional energy from you, not because you're distant, but because you're grounded. Emotional stability creates a kind of authority that doesn't need to announce itself. As triggers dissolve, your energy becomes more contained. You stop leaking attention into unnecessary conflicts, imagined arguments, or emotional loops. That energy returns to you as focus, clarity, and presence. You find yourself more selective about where you invest emotion. Not everything deserves access to your inner world. This selectivity is not avoidance, it's discernment, and discernment is a sign of emotional maturity. Relationships shift naturally. Some deepen because they're no longer driven by emotional reactions. Others fade because they depended on your reactivity to exist. This isn't loss, it's alignment. When you stop being easily triggered, you stop fitting into dynamics that require instability. You no longer attract chaos the way you used to. Calm becomes the standard, not the exception. You also develop a deeper trust in yourself. You know that no matter what happens, you can stay present. You don't fear emotional moments because you're no longer afraid of being hijacked by them. This confidence is quiet but powerful. It doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from regulating yourself. And that kind of strength is difficult to shake. Life doesn't become perfect when triggers lose their power. It becomes manageable. You experience challenges without collapsing under them. You face discomfort without escalating it. You move through tension without carrying it for days. This emotional resilience compounds over time, making you more centered, more clear, and more self-directed. People may not understand what changed, but they will feel it. Stopping getting triggered is not about becoming indifferent. It's about becoming free from automatic reactions, free from emotional exhaustion, free from patterns that once controlled you. When you reclaim your emotional space, nothing external has the same hold over you. And in that space, you don't just find calm, you find yourself.